Welcome to this tutorial on adding a label to an object, and this object is going to be a mug. As you can see, it's already done. Congratulations. Nah, just kidding. So with this mug here, this label, I can do a bunch of things such as I can make it go side to side. I can move it up and down. I can scale it up. Move it up and down, bring it down, I'll move it all around, boot, scoot, boogie, and did some other things to make it look like it's raised out. So let's get to it and I'll show you how I did it. The adding of this label requires the use of UVs and using a specific UV map that I create for this label that I want to use, such as the Blender label. And I will show you how I create that UV. I am in object mode. I'm going to go into edit mode and I'm going to go and select edges. I'm in edge mode. So I want to create a selection. So I want to create a selection from here all the way to here. So I selected that. I might have to go and I'm holding Control and clicking. Control, click, Control, click. Shift, select, Control, click, Shift, click, Control, click. Actually, I might need to just go this way. Control, click, Control, click, Control, click, select, Control, click. So right now, I have this selection. And this is a very specific selection because I'm going to go right click, mark seam. And now this gives me a seam that I can UV unwrap only this specific part here. And I'm going to use this specific part that I've UV unwrapped to add my label to. So what I'm going to do is go into X-ray mode, select everything, go UV unwrapped, angle based. I'm going to go to my UV editing workspace, clear that label out there. So when we're in this workspace here, you can see here in the data, object data properties, you see this thing called UV map. What I'm going to do is double click and type label. So I know that this is the label UV that I want to use for this label. Now, a little handy feature that you can use is if you go hit L on the keyboard, and then if this kind of doesn't show up, you might have to make sure seam is enabled. And now you have a selection for this UV. Now what I want to do is go, actually I want to make sure I'm in face select and go Control I to invert my selection, because all of this right here, I don't care about it. I only care about this part. So what I'm going to do is move it down, scale it 0. And how I did that movement, I hovered and moved down 0. Because I don't care for this particular UV map. I don't care about all this. So I can hit L. And now I can manipulate this UV by scaling it out, moving it up, such as that. I will probably manipulate a little bit more, but right now we have this going on. Now we are going to go to the shading tab. Now I already have this stuff set up, but I'm going to call it tutorial material label. So I'm going to delete everything. And what I'm left with is just the principal BSDF material output. So I'm going to go I want to add this label to this here. So go Shift A, search, image, texture. Since I've already imported that label into my Blender file, I can just choose it from here, Blender logo. But if you need to search it on your computer, hit this open image, search for wherever you have saved your image that you're working with. So right now, if I plug it right here, I have this going on. And I don't like how that looks, but it's not too bad. So see this vector socket here? You want to go Shift A, search UV map. And I can specify that specific label UV, plug that into here. And what I can do is, instead of repeat on this thing here, I want it set to clip. And now we have this going on. Now I want to manipulate this here. So I'm going to go Shift A, search, mapping. And I can scale that down. Move it up. I still don't like how that looks. So what I'm going to do is go into my UV editing again, hit L, and then I'm going to open up this Blender logo image. And you can see that it stretched this image out. I'm going to select the UVs, scale them so that it fits, this UV fits the whole space. And it just, moving it around until it fits. So now we have this going on. That looks not too bad. Now I'm going to go back into my shading. Now, if you like the black background, awesome, but I want to change it to a different color. And that is done with a mix color node. Search, mix color. Now what I want to do is use the alpha, because this is a PNG, so I get an alpha image for this PNG. Feed that into my factor. Feed the color into the bottom. Feed that. And now I can change this color to whatever I want it to be. Kind of like that green. Green's my favorite color, as well as purple. Now I can do a couple other things by adding a little bit of a raisiness to this label, kind of like a sticker. So I'm going to go Shift A, search, and I'm going to use a bump. Not the things to go bump in the night. I'm going to use the alpha into the height, normal to the normal. And now you can kind of see that it looks a little bit like it bumps out, kind of like a sticker over top of this. And on this bump node, we want to up the distance just a little bit. And you can kind of see that it's jagged a little bit. That's the nature of this image. It's not a high resolution image, so it's not going to have nice smoothness here. But that's okay for this tutorial. It works awesome. Now, if you want this to be kind of recessed, we can invert the bump mat. And now it looks like it's a little bit recessed. But I want it to look like a sticker. Now, I can manipulate this object here. And you can see it kind of like cuts into there. That's because if I go to face, that selection where that UV map is, it's only that spot. But that's okay because I wanted this label to be in the middle of this area. So I can move that down, move it from side to side. And now we have a label on a mug. So the hero of the story is the UV map that we created by going into edit mode, selecting all the edges, right click, and using, actually I want to be in edge, so right click, mark seam. There we go. Now we have a nice little Blender mug logo. I hope this was clear. If you have any questions, reach out to me. I'm happy to try to answer as the best I can. Thank you for watching. Have a great day.